Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting for the City of International Falls for Monday, June 17, 2019. Apologize for being a few minutes beyond 4:30 here as our Committee of the Whole meeting went a little bit longer than expected. I would ask all that here to please arise and pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would ask the administrator to note the roll call with Councillor Walt Buller, who is on family vacation, being absent, and the other four members of the council present. Move to the agenda, and we have one addition to the agenda, and that's under new business. Item number 4 is to authorize the use of the Riverside Park and closure of Riverside Drive between 9th and 10th Avenue for a neighborhood party. And then also under correspondence, there's an invitation from Congressman Stauber to attend a roundtable. Council's pleasure with the agenda and the additions.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Kraus to approve the agenda with the additions.
Second.
Second by Councillor Deitch. Discussion on the motion or the agenda. Hearing none, question?
Aye.
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 I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Agenda is approved. Thank you. We'll move to the minutes and the June 3rd regular City Council meeting minutes for approval.
So move.
Motion by Councillor Deitch to approve.
Second.
Second by Councillor Kraus. Discussion on the motion or the minutes of June 3rd. Hearing none, question?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried and minutes of June 3rd are approved. And we also have the minutes of the special City Council meeting of June the 10th. And you should have at your place a revised edition, different than the one that was in the packet. Does everyone have those? And City Administrator, I don't know if it needs any explanation.
It doesn't matter. An elected official brought to my attention a correction, and so I cleaned up the motion and stuff that I had in there, so I omitted a motion and inserted it in this version. So I think it adequately represents the actions that the City Council took on June 10th.
Thank you. Council's pleasure then with the minutes of June 10th special City Council meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Kraus to approve.
Second.
Second by Councillor Deitch. Questions or discussion? Hearing none, question?
Aye.
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 And I would vote yes. Motion is carried and those minutes are approved. Thank you. Move to the resolution on transfers and payment of claims. The transfers to the general fund from the Water and Sewer Fund, $9,951.67. To the Permanent Improvement Fund from the Water and Sewer Funds, $66,666.66. To the Reserve for Capital Outlay from the Water and Sewer Fund, $25,760.42. Accounts payable claims for the City of International Falls, $392,395.76. The prepaid airport land acquisition claim of $324,167.54. Regular airport commission claims of $9,665.59. And library board claims of $11,579.97. Council's pleasure with the resolution on the transfers or payment and claims.
Make the motion.
Motion by Councillor Deitch to adopt the resolution.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Droba. Discussion on the motion or the resolution.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
can you explain what the prepaid airport land acquisition claim is? I don't
Yes.
know anything about that.
Okay. The Airport Commission, city and county have been working to acquire a piece of property immediately across County Run 108 from the terminal building, and that is needed for a place to move the National Weather Service balloon launch structure in order to get it out of the clear zone for the being able to use the taxiway as a runway 2 years from now. And so the property owner was agreeable to sell the property. The Airport Commission had approved it, and then the city and county needed to approve it, and they wanted to close, and the city attorney, the airport attorney, Steve Tremone, has been working to get the closure of that property so that the property owner that is selling could move forward with their purchase of another property and structure. And so given that they wanted to close last Friday, it was prior to this meeting, and so the city administrator sent out an email to everyone outlining that this would be before us this evening. The money has been expended from the city, and so there was no objection from anyone, so we went ahead with the closure of that property. Please.
Does that include all the property by both family owners there?
And when you say both family,
There was a son and parents owned adjacent properties?
yes. And I don't remember the exact total of the acres, but there was 4 parcels.
It's about between 7 and 8 acres, I think, approximately. Yeah, but all of the parcels that the Schobergs owned was purchased for the airport.
Then the homes would be demoed or moved?
Yes,
Demoed or moved?
they'll be demoed.
Okay.
Further questions or discussion?
What was, going into this year, was this in the airport budget to acquire the land? I know that they had been talking about it, but I didn't.
It was not the city portion. The Federal Aviation Administration's paying 95% of the cost of this. The city portion had not been in the budget for 2019 because we thought it was going to be in 2020.
Okay.
But it came sooner because the property owner wanted to move forward with this as quickly as possible. Further questions or discussion with regard to the resolution or the transfers or the payment of claims? Hearing none, question.
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted, approving the transfers and the payment of claims. Thank you. We'll move to the audience. Anyone that wishes to approach the council at this time that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, there is another opportunity at the close of the meeting for that to occur. We'll move to the public hearing, and we have the first reading of the ordinance of the 5th series, adopting and imposing a 1% sales and use tax for transportation and public infrastructure capital projects, collecting, administering, and enforcing the tax and expenses and debt service on bonds as approved by the voter referendum and the laws of Minnesota for 2019. So you have before you the ordinance, and the city administrator and city attorney. Do you have any comments?
Mayor, Council, I might just add for additional background information that this ordinance is required in order to move forward with the sales and use tax as a result of the action of the Minnesota State Legislature this past session. What we had distributed in the packet midday on Friday was modified, and a revised version is before you tonight. And so it says at the top, City Attorney Revised Version 6/17/2019. And essentially what we've added is on page 2 under subpart D is the major categories of the designated projects and estimated cost for those projects. And it's by local streets versus municipal state aid streets, Highway 53 project, etc. So those major categories are identified in there. And then we asked for the city attorney on Friday when we received this to, extensively review the ordinance, and based on his comments on the last page, page 5, there was an additional section under violations and penalty, which when we reviewed it, we thought was a bit awkward, and the city attorney agreed and had revised it and abbreviated it. So item B was removed from violations and penalty. There was a statement put in here, just says where it said fraudulent return, we added or who otherwise violates any provision of this chapter shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. That was added. And we'll delete the A on page 5 there, and so violations and penalty would just be that one paragraph. Otherwise, everything's essentially the same as it was sent out midday on Friday. And just to follow up a little bit, Mayor, later on the agenda, we have asked the council to set a second reading for June 24th. And the need for that would be is to try and get this filed with the Commissioner of Revenue before the end of June, so we can start collecting the sales tax, presuming that both the first and second reading is approved and the resolution subsequent to this is approved, starting on October 1st of 2019.
So just to be clear now, does the ordinance go to the Commissioner of Revenue or the Secretary of State?
I've identified that it will go to both, but I believe the Secretary of State is what requires the ordinance, and then the resolution can go to both as well.
Very good. Thank you. City Attorney, please.
I would agree with Administrator Anderson that these two items are required, both the resolution and the ordinance, to comply with the special legislation that authorized and approved what the voters had approved, so that we can have the sales and use tax. And it needs to start at the beginning of a quarter, so October 1st would be the earliest that we could do this. And we have complied with all the requirements of the special legislation, and they've got certain steps and processes, and there's a limit that we have to follow. We've got to expend this within 30 years, and we've identified the potential special infrastructure projects that it would be used on, and in my opinion, I would urge the City Council to approve both the resolution and the ordinance so that we can move forward as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Council's pleasure then with the first reading of the ordinance of the 5th series, adopting and imposing a sales and use tax.
Move to accept.
Motion by Councilor Kraus.
Second.
Second by Councilor Deitch. Discussion on the motion or the ordinance. And I guess I would as we get to the resolution, we'll could have further discussion. But in the second page, where the $110 million figure is listed at the bottom of all of the categories of the projects, over the next 30 years, we would see a need for the potential need for $110 million in projects. Don't know exactly what projects at this point. We will have meetings in July for the Public Works Committee as well as the City Council to work on the priority of projects for both the regional significance and those locally that we can spend money on. And so that will be forthcoming, but the 100, we're under the sales tax legislation, we're only going to be allowed to collect up to 30 million or have it for 30 years, whichever comes first. It will not be for the 110 million. So just so folks don't get confused by that. But there is a need out there beyond 30 million. Further questions or discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
On the draft ordinance, on page 2, under D, that area 1 through 6 are sitting vacant. Should they have something put into that area, or I'm on the wrong page, ain't I?
Do you have the revised edition?
I do not have the revised one. I'm looking at the one that was in my packet.
Should be right up there on top.
Yeah, I have a lot of paperwork.
I was looking at the old one also.
I gotcha. Okay. Yep, that clarifies a lot of the issues I had.
Okay. Thank you. And then, as both the city administrator and the city attorney pointed out, under the city, we must have 2 readings of any ordinance under the charter, and so it's necessary in order to be able to submit this before July the 1st to the Secretary of State and the Commissioner of Revenue. We will need a special meeting on Monday, June the 24th, if approved by the council. So further questions or discussion with regard to the ordinance? Hearing none, question.
Aye.
Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried, 4-4 and none against. And the first reading of the ordinance is approved. Thank you. Then we'll move to the new business, and item number 1 is the resolution approving the local sales and use tax proceeds to fund the outlined transportation and public infrastructure capital projects. The Public Works Committee met with our Public Works Director, with the Street Commissioner, and with our consulting engineer, and asked them to put together the list of potential projects that could be done over the next 30 years. And that is I guess the appendix, as we would call it, Exhibit A of the resolution. So that dozen or so pages are all the projects that could be done. Some of those would have greater regional significance than others because they may be highway projects or other types of projects that would affect more than just the local citizens. So your pleasure with the resolution?
I would move on the resolution approving the local sales tax for specific projects.
Okay, motion by Councillor Droba to adopt the resolution approving the local sales and use tax.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Kraus. Questions or discussion? Please.
I just have to say, when we were at the Public Works meeting 2 weeks ago, and we said we had to come up with an outlined number for all of the roads and streets, I knew it was going to be considerably above 30 million. I didn't think that we had enough time to get a detailed list. I am very, very impressed with what Kurt was able to pull up, and I guess I'm not incredibly shocked that the number is 110 million. I was shocked that that was the number we were able to come up with in the week and a half of doing the assessment and going a little bit deeper than just what we were able to show the citizens of International Falls for the sales and use tax. So I would love to give Kurt a huge appreciation for what he's been able to do in such a short notice.
Yes. The consulting engineer Witza Smith and Nolting and Kurt Meyer, they did an outstanding job of putting this together, and hopefully the Commissioner of Revenue and the Secretary of State find that it's useful. Okay, further questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, the Chair would then place the question.
Aye.
And I would vote yes. There being 4-4 and none against, the resolution is adopted, approving the local sales and use tax. Thank you. Item number 2 under new business is to set a special City Council meeting, 5 p.m. on Monday, June the 24th, for the second reading of the ordinance. And that's the ordinance that we just had the first reading, so the second reading would be held on June the 24th, and then the ordinance and the resolution can be submitted to the Secretary of State and the Commissioner of Revenue. Your pleasure with that meeting on the 24th.
So move.
Motion by Councillor Deitch.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Kraus. Questions or discussion? Hearing none, question?
Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and the special meeting will be Monday at 5 p.m. here in the City Council chambers. Thank you. Item number 3 under new business is approve the request to use the basketball court at Carson Loopy Playground. Mr. Sean Barr, would you mind coming up to the microphone right in the middle of the table there, Sean, and explain? I can't pronounce the names of the classes that you intend to conduct there, and how you intend to do that.
It's Tai Chi and Qigong. I guess I've been doing it myself there for the past 10 years, and now I just kind of want to share what I've learned by doing this with other people who are interested. It's not really a class. I'm not charging anything. So I just basically, it's just a gathering of people who want to understand this, and it's a way to promote health through meditation, stretching, slow movements. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Tai Chi or. Okay. Well, it's a Chinese martial art. It's been around for thousands of years, but it's been adopted in the West as a way for health and wellness for a range of years, all the way from children to the very elderly. There's people in China that do it. They're well over 100 years old. So like I say, again, it's very slow movements. You're focused on the movement of the energy in the blood within your body through the use of meditation and stretching. It's excellent for the mind and the body. It's good exercise, and it also just promotes an overall wellness of the body.
And so how many nights a week might you do this, or how many days a week, or what
Just
would
one.
be your plan?
Just one night a week.
One night a week?
About an hour.
And you just like to do it on the basketball court there at Carson Loopy?
Yep.
And you don't intend to make money from this or
No.
charge citizens? So, very good. Council's pleasure then with allowing Mr. Barr to use the Carson Loopy Playground basketball court one evening a week for these classes.
So seconded.
Motion by Councillor Kraus, second by Councillor Droba. Discussion. Questions? Please.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
number one, I absolutely love what you're doing, and I guess I ask you a question. Would you like this something to be promoted at some point through next school year, or at the end of the school year through the Rec Commission, so that more people know about it going into summer? Because, I mean, we'll have information about it at this meeting, and it may make it into the paper. People may watch it on KCC TV, but unless you have a marketing program, and marketing programs are hard, especially when it's free. This is something that makes perfect sense to go under the Rec Commission, and that we're kind of reinventing what that looks like right now. And it makes perfect sense that you come to the city council to ask to utilize city parks and recreation. It would make just as much sense going to the rec commission. And I think that this is a big piece of where we're all confused on who's not on you, but on us, on the city government, on the school district, on where do people that want to do something in our community, where do they go? How do we handle that? So if I have your permission, we have our rec commission meeting on Wednesday. I would bring it up with your permission that you're going to be doing this, and maybe that's something that the rec commission can put out, that you're doing it free of charge, and if you want to be a little bit more formal in it to try to get some more people involved. I personally believe we have to do more in our community that is not sports as rec. I mean, rec is sports, but it's also painting. It's also using our trails and everything else, and what you're doing. And I think we have to actively promote that. So if, with your permission, I would bring that to our board on Wednesday and see if we can't get some more people to know what you're doing over there.
I think one thing that we'll all need to be aware of, for one thing, is I'm not certified in Tai Chi or Qigong. I've been practicing it for close to 20 years now, and so I don't have any formal certification. I don't have any formal training in teaching anyone. Simply sharing what I've learned over the years. So, with that in mind, I mean, I would like to be able to share this with as many people as possible, because it has benefited myself and my life quite a bit.
I just think it's stuff like this that is so important for our community. It's even a piece of mentoring, which I think we sometimes lack in our community too. We have people that want to do something, give back to our community. I'm all for it. I think what you're doing is incredibly commendable.
That's that's been my thought the whole time. Yes, something to give back.
And so maybe, Sean, what night a week will it be different nights, or how do you want to start?
Wednesday is what I'm aiming for, but it's weather dependent, obviously, because it's
certainly
in held outdoors.
And then how would folks contact you to know if they should just come, or?
I started a Facebook page.
Okay.
So, just the friends that I have. So, like Harley mentioned, it's kind of a limited group of people that I'm exposing this information to. I suppose I put out a post asking who was interested, and I got about 12 or 15 people that were interested. Out of those 12 or 15, 3 showed up at the first meeting that we had on Wednesday. So, and that's it's not about any of that to me. The more people I can reach, the better. I'm going to do it anyway. If one person shows up, I don't care.
Very good.
So I created a page in which to communicate with those people on. I don't know what it would look like moving forward. I'm just kind of trying this out.
I think it's great.
Commendable. You bet.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
this is awesome.
Further.
I was just going to comment, it's wonderful. I grew up in the Carson Loop area, and I love to see that playground in use.
Good.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
City Administrator, please.
Mayor, Council, I just had a question for Sean regarding the time on Wednesdays that you thought you might do it. So if people were interested and they're monitoring our web rebroadcast of this, they would know what time to show up.
7:30.
Okay.
I actually was approached by Judge Leduc. He's interested in this for his program, the drug court program. And I think it's a great fit.
Good.
Anything positive that people can focus their minds on is good for them.
Very, very nice. Further questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, question.
Aye.
Aye.
And I would vote yes. Approval of the use of Carson Loopy Playground basketball court is yours. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Item number 4 is the addition to the agenda, and it's the authorized use of Riverside Park and the closure of Riverside Drive between 9th and 10th Avenues for a neighborhood street party. Mr. Ben Welsh, welcome.
Thank you.
And you're doing this the 3rd year in a row? Or 4th?
4th.
4th year, great. Give us a little rundown on the plans. It's changed a little bit because I think before it was held on 2nd Street.
Yes, that's correct. So we started, I believe, in summer of 15 with a block party with folks getting together in the summer, just spending some time getting to know one another, kind of community engagement thoughts for that. And it was placed in front, the potluck and music was placed in front of my personal residence at 906 2nd Street, and received permission to close off 9th and 10th Avenues, so that small block of the 2nd Street. And it's gone off really well the last few years. Estimated anywhere from 60 to 80 participants. And this year we thought we'd kind of switch it up and try something a little different and have it on that Riverside Park, that grassy area just above the river there. Just a fresh change of pace, and it also might provide an opportunity for us to do lawn games. So neighbors have preliminarily, tentatively talked about, busting out the cornhole and croquet, etc. And I think it'll also give it a little more open space for like the children to kind of run around on the grass. So again, a potluck 5:30 to 10 or till dark, and we're respectfully requesting to close off 9th and 10th Avenue intersections of Riverside for that. We usually ask folks from the 3rd Street down to Riverside, starting from the mill and moving west to that housing complex. That's 80 plus neighbors that we try to go door to door and invite.
Oh, very good. Council's pleasure with that request for the use of Riverside Park and the closure of Riverside Drive.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Droba.
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Kraus. Discussion. Councilor Droba.
I just want to say we have something that is in the works through the Rec Commission right now, somewhat because of what you guys have started. On Wednesday, as the other members know, we've been working, me and a couple other elected officials through the school board and our Rec Commission are trying to rejuvenate our parks. And what we're going to be doing is asking nonprofit groups to host a community event in the parks and invite the community into the parks, so that our little parks are all over the city, and there's different neighborhoods that are around those. So the goal is to ask a handful of our nonprofits or our businesses in our community to come to those parks and put on an event with and invite all the neighbors, just like you have, to come out and have a potluck at the parks and engage in some of this stuff. And a lot of it comes from what you guys have been able to do and watching it grow for the last couple of years. So thanks for inspiring another group to doing something very similar to what you guys have been doing over there. What you're doing is great.
Well, thanks. That's awesome. Awesome to hear. Thank you.
Further questions from the council or comments? If not, question?
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Authorization for the use of the park, and we will barricade the street for you that evening. So
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
thank you for.
It's awesome.
Item number 5 under new business is a resolution approving the application for a 1 to 4 day temporary on-sale liquor license for the Elks Lodge for their annual corn and brat feed on August 16th, 2019. Council's pleasure.
Make the motion.
Councilor Deitch moves to approve.
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Kraus. Questions or discussion? Hearing none, question.
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and the application is approved. Thank you. Item number 6 is in conjunction with that, and that's to conduct for the Elks Lodge to conduct off-site gambling for the Recreation Commission on August the 16th during the corn and brat feed.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Kraus to approve.
Second.
Second by Councillor Deitch. Discussion? Question.
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted approving the off-site gambling for the Rainier Rec Club at the Elks Lodge. Thank you. Item number 7 is a similar resolution approving the application for a permit for the Couchiching County Community Television to conduct a raffle to be held on September the 3rd, 2019. Council's pleasure.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Droba.
A second.
Second by Councillor Kraus. Questions or discussion? Question.
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted approving the permit for the Couchiching County Community Television to conduct a raffle. Thank you. Item number 8 is a resolution supporting the International Falls Couchiching County Airport Commission to file an application with Minnesota Management and Budget Office for the purpose of bond funding for phases 2, 3, and 4 of the runway reconstruction project at the airport. Council's pleasure with that resolution.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Kraus,
I'll second.
second by Councillor Droba. Discussion. And what's happening here is the Airport Commission is applying to the Minnesota Management and Budget for a bonding support for $2.5 million to take and help with the city and county share of the project for the reconstruction of the runway and taxiway. That will likely be heard by the House and Senate bonding committees in 2020 and decided in the legislative session. Could be heard in 2019 also, but will be before the legislature in 2020 and the governor. Further questions? Hearing none. Question?
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted approving the submission to the Minnesota Management and Budget Office for bonding. Thank you. Item number 9 is Blight Committee recommendation to accept the donation of $300 from the Couchiching County Housing and Redevelopment Authority, and with a letter of thanks from the mayor.
Make the motion.
Motion by Councillor Deitch,
I'll second.
second by Councillor Kraus, to accept the donation from Couchiching County Housing Redevelopment Authority to assist with the city cleanup. Discussion.
Well, this was really nice.
Yeah, they have done that before.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember that. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay. Question.
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried and accepting of the donation. Thank you. Item number 10 is the Blight Committee's request for the City Council approval of a payment of expenses up to $2,200 for the neighborhood cleanup program for 2019. That is August, Councillor Deitch, help me, August 3rd?
I believe that's correct. I would have to take a look. I don't have my notes with me.
Yes.
Council's pleasure then with approving $2,200. This would be for advertising and I think purchase of some refreshments for the group.
And basic supplies, gloves and so on. I'll make the motion.
Motion by Councilor Deitch,
I'll second.
second by Councilor Kraus. Discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and approval for the expenditure of $2,200 is made. Thank you. Item number 11 is the approval of the audit, the financial statements for the year ended December 31, 2018, as prepared by Schlenner and Wenner.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Droba,
I'll second.
second by Councilor Kraus. Questions or discussion with regard to the approval of the audit or the financial statements? Council reviewed those this afternoon in a committee of the whole and a presentation by the auditor. And so that will be also a summary of that will be featured in the newspaper if the council approves the next motion. So further discussion with regard to the audit or financial statements. Hearing none, question?
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and audit and financial statements are approved. Thank you. Item number 12 then is to approve the submittal of the annual financial reporting form to the state auditor and publication in the journal.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Kraus,
Second.
second by Councilor Deitch. Discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and a submittal will be done to the county, to the state auditor and the journal. Thank you.
Mayor,
Please.
I just briefly want to take this opportunity to thank the administrative staff for their efforts in providing the information to the auditors. And I believe this is the fourth year that Schlenner Wenner has performed our audit. And I think we have a good working relationship with them. I think it was a thorough audit, and we had, generally positive outcome. And I just wanted to thank Betty and Brad and everybody else in the administration office for their effort in facilitating that whole audit process. It is somewhat difficult, and it's moved on the last few years very well. So I just wanted to recognize all of them.
Thank you. Very, very well stated. And I guess maybe to just to make it obvious to everyone, we received is the term clear?
Yes.
Clear and unrevised, or
All right. Thank you. We'll move to item 13 under new business and approve the police chief's request to set the hourly rate of pay of $24.51 for part-time patrol officers effective June 24th.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Kraus,
Second.
second by Councilor Deitch. Chief, any comments on your part?
Not really, Mr. Mayor. This hourly rate has been overlooked for quite some time. They're not part of the bargaining unit, so we're just simply bringing them up to where a full-time patrol officer with zero experience would start, and also to remain competitive with other agencies for recruitment purposes.
Very well stated in your memo to the council. Thank you. Councilor Droba first, and then Councilor Deitch.
I just have a question. If we're raising the rate to try to make them more competitive, the word I'm looking for, it says here that the Koochiang County Sheriff's Department pays over $25 an hour. And with that being said, should we know roughly where we're at? Because what you're asking doesn't get us up to that level. I don't know if we need to be directly on par with the county is, but This is the first time I've seen it, and I'm more than acceptable to raising the rates of our officers. I understand that, and I know that you've been shorthanded. But do you think that this is something we need to look at specifically tonight, or could we get some more information and maybe rather than just raising it to the number you have, to make sure that that is the right number? Or could you tell me about some of your backstory on how we got to that number?
Well, my thoughts on that are, when you look at the advertisements for part-time officers throughout the state of Minnesota, they're in that ballpark, right? The sheriff's office is slightly higher than we are for the part-time deputies at this point, but we will give them shift differential, which will make up that difference. Then on top of that, I don't think that we should probably be hiring part-time officers at a higher rate than a full-time officer would get by contract. So
right.
It's just on par with that.
Okay.
Maybe once the contract is up and that's revisited, then we could revisit this again.
Okay, so this would almost be a temporary thing until we get through contracts?
Potentially.
Okay, sounds good. That makes it a little bit easier. Thanks.
And just before Councillor Neach, just to be certain, the motion was to approve the 24.51 and the $1 for night shift?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Agreeable by both?
Okay, my statement was pretty much on par with what Harley said. In my opinion, law enforcement's not paid enough. No matter what you pay them, they're not paid enough. They're the one group that goes out there and risks their life every day. We can sit here and say how much they're worth, but they're worth much more than a man can pay. That's my honest opinion. Being a former negotiator, $25 an hour isn't enough. It's just my opinion.
Thank you. Okay, further discussion? So the motion is to approve the $24.51 per hour starting rate, and the night shift would be an additional $1. Okay? No further discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and the hourly rate, $24.51 plus the $1 for night shift, is approved. Thank you. Item number 14 under new business is to approve the appointment of Michael Getty to the position of spare firefighter engineer at the hourly rate of $22.64, effective June 18, 2019. Chief, did you have any comments you wish to make with regard to that?
I will. Thank you. Members of council, you guys do have my proposal in your packet. Just an explanation of what this means. We do have 8 on-call firefighters through our department. So how we fill vacation time is we train a certain number of those to be spare firefighter engineers. Michael Getty has gone through that training and is ready to be put into service as a spare engineer to fill vacation time, sick leave, and whatnot of the full-time employment. Currently, the spare firefighter engineer wage is $22.64, and with that, I would also request that the City Council approve a resolution in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 353.63 and 353.64, placing Mr. Getty onto the Public Employees Police and Fire Retirement Plan. Very interesting, I guess, that Chief Maston is dealing with the same thing. I will probably have a similar proposal in the near future as to the wage of the engineer. That $22.64 was a wage set, I think, from 2 years ago at the bottom wage of the full-time firefighter engineer. That number is now slightly different, but we also have a current engineer, spare engineer, at that wage, so we set them the same for the time being. So, again, I will probably make a similar motion at a future date, much like Chief Maston did.
Very good. Council's pleasure then with the appointment of Michael Getty.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Kraus.
Second.
Second by Councilor Deitch. Discussion. Councilor Droba.
If you're looking at changing that, and I guess I should have asked this on the previous motion that we had too, I know we've already got our budgets in for the year and we're in May. How much are these, if you were to change this, let's say the first week of July, not saying that you're going to come that soon, how much will that change your budget over the course of the year?
Very little.
Very little. Okay, I didn't think that it was going to be anything massive. I was just curious on what it would look like.
Yes, my plan going forward is potentially do a change in mid-year here, but beginning of January of each year to make that change in accordance with the problem we run into is we've set that wage to be the low wage of the full-timers, and of course that wage changes year to year to year. So what we ran into last year is, as a matter of I guess uniformity, we've always given that low wage. Well, we had a firefighter engineer with 3 years experience. We had a new one come on that we just automatically gave him the low wage, and there was a wage discrepancy there. So in trying to keep those even, we'll make that adjustment yearly from here on out.
Mayor?
Please, City Administrator.
Mayor, Council, if I may add, based on the conversation with the last item as well as this one, I think the appropriate course of action is for the department heads to examine what an appropriate pay scale would be for performing, in this case, spare firefighter duties, and then to have a discussion with the City Council when we're looking at the 2020 budget as part of the budgeting process through our Budget and Finance Committee, and then make recommendations and set an appropriate budget in our preliminary budget that needs to be done by September 30th for next year's wages. And then, as Chief Manassa has pointed out, it could be effective January 1st, which would be probably the best method of moving forward, because we'll have budgeted sufficient funds for any increase or any other changes in wages for both the police department as well as the fire department. So I think we would need to be mindful of the rates that are paid for similar work through our union contracts. But again, both the spare engineer and the part-time police are not members of the bargaining unit, and they're because they're in a part-time capacity, they're not paid any benefits either. So we need to evaluate appropriate pay scales for given those circumstances.
And so my question would be here then with regard to night shift, because probably there's a fair number of employees that might take their night shift off, and these folks would be filling in on the night shift. Do they receive a night shift differential as a firefighter engineer spare?
Currently, my people do not receive that night shift differential.
Okay. So maybe take that into account as we work on this. Okay, further discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried to approve the appointment of Michael Getty to the position of spare firefighter engineer.
Thank you.
Just hold it just a minute, Chief. Then we'll go to the resolution on approving the Public Employees Retirement Association declaration for Michael Getty.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Kraus.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Droba. Discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted approving the Retirement Association declaration for Michael Getty. Thank you. Item number 16 is the council had the discussion in the Committee of the Whole this afternoon with regard to the building demolition policy, and which we have presently under moratorium. And there was very good discussion, and I think some additional changes that we will continue to consider. But we'll continue the moratorium and hopefully have the demolition policy back before the City Council. If not July the 1st, the second Monday, or the third Monday in July. The what day?
15th.
15th, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
May I make a motion to table this until the July 1st meeting and continue the moratorium until at least July 1st.
Accept your motion. The motion is by Councillor Kraus to table the any changes on the building demolition policy at this time until the meeting of July the 1st. Is that?
Yeah, and continue the moratorium.
And then continue the moratorium. Thank you.
I'll second it.
Second by Councillor Droba. Discussion.
My personal belief, we don't need a motion or a second on this. Everything is in concrete, but I think just having the motion out there, letting people know that the moratorium is still on for our demolition policy makes sense.
May I? And I think the only reason I made the motion is because the original motion that I made for the moratorium was set to expire today. So I think it's important to continue the moratorium.
That makes a lot more sense then.
Further discussion? Question?
Aye.
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 And I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and the policy will be tabled till July the 1st and continuing the moratorium on demolition. Thank you. Any other business under new business? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go to reports of boards, committees, department heads. City Administrator, please.
Mayor, I know that the council's received some correspondence from our consultant on the comprehensive plan, and some dates were suggested for special meetings. I'm just wondering if the council wants to discuss that now, or I actually don't have those. I think he was looking at at 2 weeks in July, and I'm just wondering if there's some dates that we should stay away from in scheduling discussion on the comprehensive plan.
Do we want to wait? He said he's going to have it to us the middle of this week, but
Said he was going to have it to us the middle of 2 weeks ago.
right. So it's kind of slip-sliding. So I'm just wondering if we want to wait till that July 1st meeting and then try to set. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, we've been waiting
I'd like
since
to have
July.
it in hand.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, we've been waiting since June of 2017, so
Right.
or 18. So.
Yep. All right. So we'll have it on the agenda for the July 1st meeting then.
Very well.
Thank you. Further.
And then one other question of the council. I had sent an email out, and we had received a preliminary estimate from the State Demographer's Office on our population and household estimates. I sent an email out to the council. I wouldn't advise that we make any changes to that because we don't really have the data to do it, but I just wanted to verify with the council that you didn't have any concerns with their estimates. I actually think they're probably a little high right now.
I do too, and I was shocked that we went up.
I believe it was down 4, if I recall correctly. I think it was 61-41 year before. So,
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult one. I think that there's probably down, but I met a couple this weekend that just moved back to town, and they purchased a home, and so I'm continue to believe in the community is doing fairly well in population.
Just an observation that I have. I find it really interesting because we do see people that we know that are leaving town. We see them, their families we've known for years, and a handful of them are leaving. But people are coming here as well, and they're not just people that are coming home. I meet a lot of new people that are coming to our community through the coffee shop, and we are getting families of 4. We're getting 1 or 2 people here. There's a new gentleman that just moved in on 8th Street, close to 8th Street Park, and bought a house here from California because he saw it was in northern Minnesota, and when he retired, his money could go a lot farther for him in northern Minnesota than it could in California. So he sold his house and he moved here. So we may not see all of the people that are moving in because they're not familiar to us. We maybe see them off and on and we think that they're just tourists or they're just here for a little bit or they're visiting somebody. But there are new people that are coming into our community, and unless we're open community and speaking with them and getting to know who they all are, they're still going to be the new people in 6 years and in 10 years. So just an opportunity when we see new people to introduce ourselves and be a welcoming community.
Thank you. Further.
Mayor, I would just add, to follow up on that conversation, it'll be really key for the city of International Falls, as well as all communities, quite frankly, is to make sure that we get an accurate and complete count for the 2020 census, because a lot of state aids are dependent upon your population base, and so that census is done every 10 years, and so ours is, of course, as you all know, is coming up again in 2020. So we'll want to make sure that we have a complete count so that we know what that actual number is, and that's the best fix, really. The rest of the information you'll see are estimates based on building permit activity, births, deaths, those types of things. So they are estimates. So,
April of 2020. Thank you. Further, City Administrator? Thank you. City Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, Council, I have nothing special to report.
Thank you. Chief Maston.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. I've included in your packet the activity for the police department for the month of May. As you'll see statistically, thankfully, we had a relatively quiet month in May with 495 calls for service, 135 traffic stops, 87 citations. We assisted the ambulance 31 times. We had 13 in custody and generated 87 new case reports. All of that's broken down in the records attached to your packets. Additionally, we had a couple training opportunities. One of our sergeants attended the Leadership Academy that the Minnesota Chiefs of Police put on, which is a really good program to train and help new supervisors. Additionally, after having a conversation with Councilor Kraus, you'll see that I've included in my report some deer vehicle statistics at his request.
And Mayor,
please.
I would add that I added the DNR information. I happened to be doing some research in that too, and some of it was kind of interesting, talking about select counties where it is illegal to feed deer, for instance, and then accident data and other kinds of information. So I provided that for council information and added it to the chief's report.
Thank you. Questions for Chief Maston? Very good report. Thank you. Chief Manassa, further?
Nothing to report at this time, Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Administrator Bergstrom? Thank you. We'll go to reports of the Mayor, Council Committees, Boards, and Commissions.
Mr. Mayor?
Please, Councilor
Bergstrom. For the record, I misspoke at the last council meeting when I said that we had an ordinance on the books about feeding deer. It is in fact legal to feed deer, although we would, how do you put it, politely ask that you don't, but it is in fact legal to feed deer within the city limits. So, and then looking at the data, was it 14 collisions with deer in the last 12 months, 8 of which went to sustained, and 0 nuisance reports. The police department in the last 12 months has not fielded a single nuisance report on deer. So just found that interesting.
Okay, thank you. Further on Council Committees, Boards, and Commissions?
Mayor?
Please, Councilor.
Lake Committee met.
Yes.
We're moving along great. The city officials, the city employees out there are doing a great job. We're seeing improvements. Things are happening. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
Chief Manassa, could you tell us how many letters you have issued to this to date?
I believe it's 52.
52 letters of asking for property owners to do correction, and if they don't, we're moving in and doing some, I know we're doing mowing and cleaning up of some properties.
Yep, and we've had a number of them done. I don't have the number after today, but 52 letters have been sent, a number of which have been cleaned up at this point. Either by the homeowner or property owner or through city actions.
Very good. Thank you. I certainly agree with Councillor Deitch. There's activity out there. I would, please, Councillor Droba, please.
Just two things. Number one, the Recreation Commission meets on Wednesday. We have, again, we've departmentalized all of the things that have came out of that town hall meeting. We have three projects that the Rec Commission is working on. We hope to have a handful of those resolved by the fall, and it seems to be the will of the Rec Commission and the school board to have another town hall meeting to be determined later on, to kind of bring back all the information that we received and give them back what we've been able to do. And I'm really looking forward to that hard work from the committees. The other one is KTI, Kuching Technology Initiative. We ended up dispersing some of the $75,000 for local projects. The first round, we gave away about a little over $10,000 to local projects. There will be another round for people to submit for funding for the 4 pillars of Blandon. And so that's where we're at on that. And the last thing is I appreciate what we've been doing on the 4th of July Commission. I'm very, very excited for it to be Smokey the Bear this year. I think it's going to be a great 4th of July.
Thank you, Councillor Droba, and all those items. With regard to Smokey, there has been some oxidation of the paint on Smokey, and the street commissioner and public works director are working on that. They will be spending some time, or city crews will be spending some time to remove that oxidation, and it just brightens up the paint, the material that they're using, and also the base will be repainted before the July 4th, given that we get some sunshine, warm weather. I would just, under Mayor's report, just point out one item, and that's that I attended the retirement party for Beverly Mayfield of the Salvation Army, and she'll be leaving her post at the end of July. Just wanted to make special note of that. She has really been a wonderful leader with a great deal of compassion for the citizens during their time of need in this community, and she will be truly missed. She will be replaced. They do have another individual coming in to lead the Salvation Army, and she'll be working with her for the month of July as a transition, and she goes into retirement. So I just wanted to note that. Secondly, on the Mayor's report, I also included a discussion that I had with a number of the businesses, and I've had one citizen also call with regard to the potential loss of the signal light at 7th Street that the Minnesota Department of Transportation is telling us under the Highway 53 program they do not want to put a light there. They do not believe it warrants a signal light. I disagree and think that there ought to be one. So I don't know that we're going to be able to convince them to share in the cost of that. And so it would come down to the city having to put forth our own city funds for a signal light, and that would come to a decision here at the City Council. But I really think with the work that Northern Lumber is going to be doing across the street in building a warehouse, with the Lakes Gas going to be bringing in rail cars of propane, and having trucks delivering, 18-wheelers delivering propane from International Falls to other communities in northern Minnesota, I think that there is some reason to believe we should have a signal light there. So I just bring that to your attention. We will have another meeting with the Minnesota Department of Transportation in the near future. We were scheduled to have one tomorrow, but that has been postponed because they're not ready, and so we expect to have them here sometime in July. With that, anything further under council committees, boards, and commissions?
Mayor.
Please.
On the traffic light, does the state recommend or recognize, I should say, hazard as well as traffic flow? Or do they just do traffic flow?
I think they maybe tend to look at that, but I don't think it's a criteria that will be a determining factor. But everything that they've said to us is that it's traffic flow. And just to further that, they believe that there's not sufficient traffic flow to have a light at 11th Street and Highway 53, but I think we've been able to convince them that with the trail that crosses there or begins there for snowmobiles and ATVs, and then the fact that there is it's a route to school because we have schools, the high school down at the other end of 11th Street. They're willing to continue having signal lights at 17th Street, 11th Street, and 4th Street on Highway 53. But they're not willing, at this point anyway, to continue the light at 7th Street.
Well, you think transportation of propane alone would warrant it?
Well, and certainly, I think we have city garage there, and you just don't move a grader from the street to the avenue in a split second. And so if there's traffic moving from 11th Street to 4th Street, and the speed could be up to 30 miles an hour, vehicles that are graders or loaders or tandem trucks or 18-wheelers, they're going to have a challenge getting out onto Highway 53.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing further under committee reports. We'll go to the audience. Anyone in the audience that wishes to bring something to the attention of the council at this time? Council Brober.
I had one last thing I forgot to bring up, and I apologize. I was officially contacted by a citizen on Pleasant Avenue, and they would like to do a petition to have the road improved.
So we should get a copy of the petition.
Is that all it is just get a copy of a petition?
And then have it circulated by the neighbors there.
Yeah, okay. I've been contacted with the hotel going in there. He'd like to see that road be improved upon, and he's fairly certain that the neighbors would be agreeable to it as well.
Very good. Thank you. Again, anyone in the audience? Seeing and hearing none, we will note the correspondence that the round table on July the 1st would make it difficult to make that round table and make the council meeting, so doubtfully anyone will be doing that. The next regular city council meeting is scheduled for Monday, July the 1st at 4:30 p.m. Nothing further to come before the council at this time. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you.